Despite the inevitability of our death, it's a topic that most people find uncomfortable. Many of us have quite a bit of anxiety surrounding death, and there's a huge industry built around anti-aging, longevity, and developing strategies to make us live longer. But a hospice nurse has revealed three common things she observes in people just before passing away, attempting to encourage people to be less scared about the end of life. 1. Worries about dying. Worries about dying or the anxiety of losing a loved one are a normal part of the human experience. Up to 10% of people experience what's called death anxiety, referring to an intense fear of dying. 2. Awareness of death's inevitability. Research shows that one of the unique experiences that human beings have is the awareness of our own inevitable death. Many studies are investigating what's behind the fear of dying. 3. Factors that impact death anxiety. There are some factors that can impact the prevalence of death anxiety, including marital status, gender, and age. But studies have also found that physical and mental health, as well as a sense of meaning in life, also play significant roles. 4. Palliative nurses and death doulas. Palliative nurses, who provide end-of-life care for those facing terminal illnesses, have long attempted to ease people's anxieties on the topic. There are death doulas, too, who help people navigate the inevitable. 5. Book from a hospice nurse's perspective. An American hospice nurse, Julie McFadden, even wrote a book titled Nothing to Fear, Demystifying Death to Live More Fully, to chronicle her experiences in caring for the dying and ease people's anxieties. 6. Nurse Julie McFadden wrote the book based on her 16 years of experience as a hospice nurse. On social media, McFadden goes by the name of Nurse Julie. It's on platforms like TikTok that she shares her experiences of caring for the dying, with millions of people tuning in to her posts. 7. Common phrases. One series of posts that McFadden published, for example, highlights some of the most common phrases and expressions of care that she's heard when tending to people in hospice. 8. Love, gratitude, and forgiveness. McFadden shares that before people pass away, they typically share their love for their family and friends. They also express moving words of gratitude and even forgiveness to their loved ones. 9. Patients choose when to say goodbye. McFadden says that, in addition to common phrases by patients facing their last days, there's another commonality that she's observed throughout her years of experience. McFadden shares that it is common for people in hospice to choose the right moment to say goodbye. 10. Sometimes, patients decide when they're going to die. This is scientifically inexplicable, but McFadden shares that there are a number of occasions in which a patient has decided that they're going to die. On the Dr. Karen Explores podcast, McFadden explains this phenomenon. 11. Waiting for a special occasion to pass. McFadden shares that she has had patients who will say, "I'm going to die after this date," or are awaiting the passing of a specific special occasion, such as a wedding, before passing. This is not uncommon, according to McFadden. 12. Choosing specific date. McFadden adds that some people actually decide the date in a very specific manner. For example, she remembers a patient who was not actively dying, but shared with McFadden that they were going to die that evening. To McFadden's surprise, the patient passed. 13. 3 specific observations. In addition to common sayings and experiences that McFadden has observed over the 16 years she has worked in palliative care, she has also identified some behaviors that indicate that a patient is just 24 hours away from death's door. 14. Specific noise. One of the observations that McFadden shares is a specific noise that patients tend to make preceding death. McFadden refers to the noise as a gurgling sound that has been dubbed the death rattle. 15. Gurgling noise. According to scientists, the gurgling noise is a natural part of the dying process. The sound that McFadden highlights is an indicator that a patient is struggling with the ability to swallow or cough. 16. Swallowing and coughing compromised. When a person loses their ability to independently perform functions like swallowing and coughing, liquids like phlegm and saliva begin to accumulate in their throat and airways. 17. Liquid buildup. The gurgling noise that McFadden points out is specifically related to this buildup. The built-up air passes through this accumulated liquid, and that's what gives way to this rather unusual noise. 18. Sound can be uncomfortable for patients' families. McFadden says that in the last 24 hours before a patient dies, hearing this noise is quite common. The sound can be particularly uncomfortable for patients, families who are accompanying their loved ones in their last days. 19. Drawn-out breaths. Another change that McFadden observes in her hospice patients is changes in breathing. Breaths can often become drawn out and much slower than usual. This, too, can be difficult for families to observe. 20. Pausing between breaths. McFadden notes that this kind of drawn-out breath can seem like the patient is pausing for several seconds before taking in their next breath. The breath can become so drawn out that patients, loved ones may even think their loved one has already passed. 21. Agonal breathing. There is another alteration to breathing that may be observed in patients who are dying, which is called agonal breathing. This kind of breathing pattern can appear as desperate gasps for air. 22. Different from true breathing. These breathing patterns are different because the breath's function is different from true breathing. When the body is not receiving the oxygen it needs to continue living, it has these natural reflexes. 23. Agonal breathing typically indicates proximity to death. It is agonal breathing in particular, McFadden points out, that she most regularly observes as a patient is very close to death. Although the brain is still functional, it is exerting itself to try to obtain more oxygen to survive. 24. Upsetting for caregivers to observe. The patient is not experiencing any pain in either of these breathing patterns, according to researchers, although both breathing patterns can be quite upsetting for their loved ones to observe. 25. Death stare. In addition to unusual noises and irregular breathing patterns, there is another observation that McFadden shares, which she suggests is an indicator of a patient's last moments alive. She calls this the death stare. 26. Typically most comforting moments. While scary in name, the death stare is typically, according to McFadden, the most comforting moment for caregivers to observe when accompanying their loved one's final moments. 27. Unconscious state. In their final moments, patients may have their eyes or mouths open. They are still breathing and medically alive, but they are unconscious. McFadden says that in this stage, it is not possible to awaken a patient. 28. Patients can likely still hear or feel the presence of others. Patients' eyes may appear to be glazed over and unfocused, meaning that it is clear they are not looking at anything in particular. Though patients may not be conscious, they can likely still hear and even potentially feel the presence of others. 29. Death does not look the same for everyone. While these observations are common in patients facing their last 24 hours of life, as per McFadden's experiences, she stresses that death does not look the same for everyone. Some patients pass on quickly, others take longer or die suddenly.